Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com.
Sure Bet Coffee. Put the giddy up in your cup.
Hi, everyone, and today we want to welcome Jena Antonucci to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Jeff, for having me.
Yeah, you bet. You know, last year, just what a whirlwind of a year it was for you. I got to meet you out there at Breeders' Cup, and unfortunately, your horse didn't get to run, but, winning the Eclipse Award and everything that year had done for you. Can you explain, have things slowed down, or are they still going just as busy as ever?
It's just as busy as ever. It doesn't seem to matter if you have, 5 or 30 or whatnot. This business doesn't let you grow many roots under your feet.
That's it. I noticed on your website that you have. Do you still have the layup and rehab facility as well as the breeding and stuff? Yeah,
we sure do.
And do you have a background in hunter jumpers at all?
Yeah, I grew up riding show horses. Starting quite young, and really didn't pivot out of it fully until probably my mid-20s, and still have lots of connections and get to watch a lot of that. And obviously when we're retiring a lot of these guys and retraining them for their next careers, we do a lot of them into that discipline. So a whole lot of that's still going on in the background.
That's great. And I noticed that all your big interviews, and especially on your big wins, I noticed that you really are about the team environment. Your team is almost like family to you. And I just want to say, kudos to you, because everybody knows you're the one in front, win or lose, you're the one that has to take the responsibility. But it all comes down to the team behind you and supporting you. So could you tell us a little bit about your team and how long they've been with you?
We've been building this for, a decade and a half easily. Fiona obviously talked a lot about her and our relationship, and my gratitude for everything she brings to this, not even just as a horsewoman, but just as a person. She's steadfast, and just her center is great. Everyone knows where she stands, and just an overall great person. And her husband, Robert, was obviously Archangelo's main pilot through the journey. And so to have him part of the team for so long as well, and get such great feedback on horses that we're developing and bringing along and fine tuning. And this keeps going. Jorge, our foreman, who is working on being an assistant as well, has been with us for probably 12 plus years. And it's been fun to watch his journey and every groom that we have, from Giovanni to Cruz to Jose to, Irvin and all of them. This is all at the racetrack side, and all of our hot walkers that are part of the team. And just for us, it's a lot of fun watching people grow. A lot of our riders as well, where we might bring on someone that's a little bit green and maybe hasn't been through programs. And I'm kind of okay with that at times, because it allows us to give them a fresh perspective and kind of bring them up a way that we might feel is the right way. Fiona has a big hunter jumper background as well. And so I think that allows us to maybe teach them to be a little more balanced and kind of come at things a little bit more untraditional for a thoroughbred point of view.
I definitely think that some of those quality basics are helpful, because especially with young horses, teaching them to switch leads and be balanced, that hunter jumper and flat work background really come into play, as opposed to just sitting on top and getting around there. So
yeah, it's a pet peeve of ours.
Okay, good. And would you say, what does your year look like? Like, where are you based? Are you Gulfstream, New York, based out of Ocala at all, or how's that combination?
All of that sounds about right. So we, our Horology, the other side of my world, is based in Ocala. Home is Ocala for me as well. And then we've had a year-round presence in Gulfstream for several years now, and getting ready to peel some out of here and some out of Ocala and other spots going to Kentucky. And then we will be up in upstate New York, up in Saratoga. So that's been our normal kind of steady. We're, I think, blessed this year to add in the Kentucky component and see how that does and grows, and just continuing to be responsible with numbers. Jeff, we don't want to have 150 in training. It's just not kind of who I am as a person. We enjoy the horses, the relationship, not rushing through the morning. And so obviously, I think anybody would always like to try and focus on a little bit more quality over quantity. And for us, it's developing those kinds and hopefully letting the rest tell the story.
Yeah, when you like with Archangelo really kind of put you on the national scene, did you find that the phone was ringing a lot more and people were calling wanting you to take horses?
I think there's been relationships established with a lot of people for a long time, being in this business and doing so many different avenues of it. So maybe more conversations with some of those people and some new ones, absolutely. But as you know, I mean, you've done this for quite some time. All the 3-year-olds that we have in the barn now, we're already kind of in the barn before everything happened. So some of those new connections or new conversations will be for kiddos coming to the barn starting kind of around now, and developing those for hopefully the latter part of this year and into next year and beyond.
Could you explain for me, like Horseology and what that is or what that means?
The Horseology part of what we do is basically everything from conception to retirement. And so Katie Miranda is my business partner on that side of the world. And we, full out a handful, believe it or not, in Ocala, and do a lot of repro work and getting some of those mares back in full, whether it's in Florida or Kentucky or, wherever they're going to be bred back. And then we raise up young horses, weanlings to yearlings, yearlings to 2-year-olds, sales prep a lot of those kids, and then develop our pinhook horses that we either buy as weanlings or yearlings, and then train those groups on. And we're blessed to have a handful of clients that we still do a lot of layups for, and really enjoy that work. It probably goes back to the show horse roots of balance and putting them back together and just figuring out where they may have lost their way at the racetrack a little bit. Not necessarily in a bad way, being out here, you're really restrictive in how you can train. And so sometimes we get to unravel that in the farm environment. And that's very, very gratifying and rewarding to send them back and watch other champions go on with other trainers and other winners and be able to root for them and know that you had a little piece and helping the horse find their groove again.
Yeah, it's amazing what 30, 60, 90 days will do for a horse. And I know when you came out to Santa Anita, the more you could have your horse outside and rolling in the sand pin, the better. So what would you say? Do outside trainers send horses to you? Because I know there's that fine line of, well, we don't want them to know what problems they have.
Well, have found some of that to be a little bit less. One thing we've always been very, very vocal about, and I have been, is, and this group of trainers too, is I'm not looking to poach their owners and poach their horses. We want to be able to do what's right for these horses, have a great level of respect for these trainers. Obviously, the owners know who I am before and after of what we were able to accomplish with Archangelo. We just, we have a phenomenal facility where we're at Goldmark in Ocala, so we can swim everything that, we're trying to be fresh in. We get the turnout that we need, alternative options in training. And so having all that in our tool shed is pretty amazing. It's probably not far off from what a lot of people might get to do, say up at Fair Hill. Mark Cassie has a lovely facility in Ocala as well, where he gets to do the same thing. So it's just being able to bring some of those things in-house and be able to offer it to different trainers that we've been blessed to do that with.
So I would imagine if you had something in Saratoga and you just really felt it needed freshening, you just ship it on down to Ocala and freshen it up. So, yeah. I mean, like as you know, between the vans and the whole country is getting smaller, and horses are getting to wherever they need to get to, whether it be flying or vanning. So
it's really changed the dynamic of racing and management of these guys. And so, I think before it's like, oh, how am I going to get there? And you think of how much that part has evolved, where, a phone call can get you a van within a couple of days, typically.
When you mention those like 100, 150 or plus horses that some trainers have, that it really gets difficult because you can't have that personal touch with them that, you come down the barn with cookies or carrots and they start winning at you because they really know you. So you've kept it small. What would you say your numbers are right now?
The farm number, right. The farm number is obviously a different kind of beast in conversation. We're in the midst of breaking and training season. So, near the 50 number there with, all those kids kind of starting to find their way to different trainers, and some of ours are in-house and some will go elsewhere. And so it's also nice to be able to send them on their way with a report card of here's who they are and what they are and the whys. In the racing side, we're sitting around the 30 number, and we're pretty happy, in that number here. And that number might shift a little bit, but again, having, Jorge that's shifting up to becoming an assistant, and Fiona, and then myself, wherever we are location wise, those numbers aren't going to be out of control, where we know who the horses are. And that's just important to who we are.
Do you have some horses in Kentucky, or you mentioned Kentucky? Are you sending a string?
Yeah, it's imminent to happen. So we've got stalls. We're just getting past today, obviously being the big day of racing here in South Florida. Don't mind my dogs helping this morning, and then we'll have our first group of kiddos heading up there.
Nice. And what would you say? You've been in the business a while. What have you seen being a woman in this business? As we know, it's male dominated. What are some of the roadblocks or things that you found being a woman as a racehorse trainer?
I think you just have to create opportunity in a different way. And that's probably, the biggest challenge of all of it. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just understanding you've got to create opportunity differently. It's, some might not view it appropriate to go, sit at the bar and have a bunch of cocktails, or, however people would network previously has just evolved. And so that's probably the biggest challenge, or the biggest conversation, I've had, especially since our years, just understanding how to grow business differently as a woman than as opposed to a man. And that's not good, bad. It's just different. I think generationally things have shifted a bit as well, where the older generation, the older ownership groups had a way that they did business in their professional lives, and that bled over into their, to the sport that they participated in with racing. And so they may have enjoyed having, that male interaction, that male relationship of, because that's how it was for them in their executive world, or say on the golf course or whatnot. And so that just bled over into their sport of horse racing. And so I think as generationally we see things shift with that, as societally we see things shift like that, I think we're seeing some of that starting to shift in racing as well.
I know it certainly seems that, women in general, they have that nurturing kind of ability about them. And so, obviously they love animals, and they can sense things like, hey, this horse didn't eat, or he's a little quiet. So I definitely think women are very in tune to that. Also, the owner or the main owner of Archangelo, he seemed quite young when I saw him. How long have you been training for him?
We had just met him by happenstance, really, at Keeneland the year he bought Archangelo. Katie we were in the back ring looking at something, and I was actually kind of on either side, and she whistled to get my attention, and John was like, "What? Huh?" It was just kind of a sarcastic exchange, and it was funny. And he ended up buying Archangelo the next day, and he initially started with Clovis up in Pennsylvania. We got him at the farm about January-ish, and kind of started over with him a little bit. And so yeah, it was just something bigger than us putting all the pieces together.
Nice. And then being, like you said, maybe only his first year of being an owner, I mean, what a way to kick off and start.
He's been in the business for some time. He had done some more Mid-Atlantic things, and he was just, had some sent around a little bit here and there. So to win the Belmont for your 40th birthday is pretty amazing.
Oh, even better. Yeah. So yeah. No, that, and really, I mean, you were odds on in the Breeders' Cup Classic, or one of the top two betting choices, but they've had something different planned, and you kind of knew he probably was going to the breeding shed soon. So, but that kind of ride, I think it only did. Okay, gotcha.
We fully plan on campaigning as a 4-year-old. So,
4-year-old. Okay.
Yeah, our entire focus of developing that horse was, and John's full focus was Breeders' Cup for 2024, and him having a big 4-year-old year. So, no, we had. That was not a heavy conversation, and things just kind of happened in the way that they did. But no, we actually fully intended on having a 4-year-old this year. And
that's where I appreciate the correction.
Yeah.
And I do think that, being a young owner, or younger owner, I think that's where he enjoys the racing, and that's where the action is. Maybe not the money as big as a stallion could be, but that's the trade-off. If you're going to run and enjoy the races and show the world and the public the horse that you have versus kind of taking the money off the table and heading to the breeding shed? Because
I respect everything that happened and how we got there, and I was, very obviously comfortable. The decisions and how they happened, everything was, as you know, it's such a hot plate environment in that moment, but it's completely good. And John likes to have 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, and his kiddos that are coming up right now are on a little vacation, the 2-year-olds, and they'll come back later in the year to be ready to have 3-year-old careers. And so it's, not all owners are wired that way, and so it's a blessing.
Oops. And we'll see if we can get Jena back on here in just a moment.
There you are.
Hey, there we go. And yes, these things happen, live television. So there you go. Yeah. But one of the things was, it's exciting that, to see, I got to meet you guys in the barn there at Santa Anita. And 5 days, well, a couple of weeks out, but then it became crunch time, entries, pre-entries, all that. But then what a roller coaster of emotions for you for like the last, from that first dinner and everybody's asking you questions to morning of the race. As a racehorse trainer, there's always these ups and downs, but that one just like, in my eyes, would have taken it to a new level.
It was a lot. You just have to, I think I compare this a lot to when I played a lot of golf, where you have to really learn to stay in the moment and stay present. And I think, I've always been a big one of turning the white noise out. And if you let the white noise get too loud in your head, you make poor decisions. And so that's really where we stayed focused through that week, and allowing things to happen how they needed to, and making good decisions and those kinds of things for him, and letting things happen in their time frame. And that's where we stayed focused. But yes, it was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah. I definitely, watching the Eclipse Awards and having you win the Eclipse, that was kind of like, well, she's been through the storm, and now it's kind of nice to not have the pressure, but get the award. So congratulations on that. And that really looked like a special moment. You got to share it with all your team. And so that was great. So you're going to possibly, the plan is to head to Kentucky with some horses. Yeah. When will you be heading to New York?
Kind of not far off on that, obviously, with Saratoga opening very shortly. And just watching the weather a little bit, honestly, Jeff, they just had a big old snowy thing come through late, which is always annoying. So once the weather looks like it's broke, then we'll get that first group of kids up there to upstate. And that's pretty routine for us. We've done that, for well over a decade, to more base out of Saratoga and ship and run out of there if we need to. I prefer the quieter and a little more laid back environments.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And so you have a horse in Gulfstream today.
Yeah.
3-year-old filly. Could you tell me a little bit about that one?
Do-gooder. She's a really cool filly, wonderful owner, and just excited to watch her develop. Obviously, she'll get to answer hopefully a big question today and show us who she is. But the team's been pretty excited about her from the beginning. Robert has also been on her and has been watching her develop, and he was a little bummed she didn't win first time out. So it was cute to watch that journey for the team, and came back in a nice maiden race and horrific weather that day, and just handled it all so well on a very off track. So classy filly, fun filly to be around, loves the job, and we're excited to see what her level's going to be. And I'll stay out of her way and let her tell us her level.
Yes, like let the horses do the talking. That's great horsemanship. What about where are you stabled at Gulfstream, or do you stable at one of the other facilities?
We're stabled at Gulfstream. I'm actually on the south side. We've chose to be over in the tent area right when they put these up. The horses just love it over here. It's quieter, lots of ventilation, round pens over here, and so a little bit off the beaten path, not being in the traditional backside over here, but horses just do really well in these barns.
I've seen they've added the TOA course there at Gulfstream. Have you liked that addition, and have you run many horses there?
It has its vein. I definitely understand the perception and the industry leaning into it right now from a safety perspective. Every surface we train on presents its challenges, and its pros and its cons. And I would say the TOA courses, no matter where they're going to be, it's going to provide the same ups and downs that every other training surface has. I don't believe it to be the end all be all answer, but I definitely understand why and what, and I think it will offer a component to racing. It will offer an option for racing, but trainers can be finicky. If we run a horse on it one time and it doesn't like it, they're not going to see it again. So just like we treat the dirt and the turf the same way, and it's just adding another conversation in with that. Horses get bumps and bruises on it the same that we get, them on the dirt and on the turf.
Yeah, I guess where it really comes in handy is, like you said, in that very heavy inclement weather where they have to come off the turf or the dirt. They just don't feel it maybe safe enough, but a much sandier tracks on the East Coast than it seems to be on the West Coast. So, yeah, well, I want to wish you best of luck. I really appreciate taking the time today, and good luck. I hope you get some Oaks points today. And yes. And best of luck moving north up to Saratoga. And definitely, I'm sure we'll be in touch, but just wanted to say thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. We'll talk to you soon. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Nobody does it better.